How's everyone doing today? For Jim, it's early evening. The rest of you, I'm not sure what time it might be. Jim had some thoughts he wanted to share today, and he thought he'd go live to do it. Just trying to test out the live capabilities a little bit more ever so often. And so, Jim's thoughts today is, why do we gravitate so much towards the familiar? Now, I know the familiar makes us feel good. Familiar is our comfort zone. But why do we prefer the familiar when sometimes it's not even the best for us? Jim is a diabetic, as he shared with you before. The familiar for Jim is a glass of chocolate milk and a donut as a snack. This is not a good thing for Jim, but it is a thing that he is comfortable with, and he likes it better than granola and a glass of water or something. And it has more to do with just the taste. Jim likes the taste of granola. He likes the taste of water. But there's just something that makes Jim gravitate towards the chocolate milk and the donut because it's comfortable. Another thing Jim does, and this is maybe something in the extreme, and I know that some people with OCD and such as that get carried away with the familiar, but Jim has always put an odd number of ice cubes in his drinks, either 3 or 5. If it's an extremely large cup, maybe 7. But if he gets down to where there's only 2 cubes of ice left in the ice tray, he has to go with 1 ice cube because, well, that's an odd number. Also, Jim has found that he likes the volume on items at even numbers. He would prefer the volume to be at 24 instead of at 25. Don't know why. Just one of those things that Jim's mind likes. There is certainly a comfort in the familiar. If you ever woke up in a different bed, maybe you're staying at friends, maybe you're staying at a hotel. You wake up that first night or that first morning, and you kind of look around, try to figure out where you're at. It takes a minute for your brain to go, oh, yeah, that's right. It takes your brain a minute to remember, oh, the bathroom is down this hallway, or the bathroom is over here in this corner of the room. And so that's just one of the ways we find the familiar. I know sometimes even maybe taking a route to work. Route you always take is blocked because there's a detour, there's some road work. You have to go a different way. It maybe only adds a minute or 2 to the drive, but for some reason, it feels odd and out of place because it is not the familiar. It is not what you always do. I think also maybe the familiar breeds some confidence. When we do the same thing over and over, like that trip to work, we know we're going to get there on time. We know that the traffic is going to be light, and we're pretty well confident that it's going to be a safe journey because it has been all those times before. We're also confident that when we go to our favorite restaurant, we're going to enjoy the meal because we always had before. We like the way they make the steak. We like the way they bake the potato. We like the way they season the green beans, or whatever it might be. So Jim wonders, there are times Jim stresses. Like he said, if there's only 2 cubes of ice, he has to go to 1. And then Jim wonders, is this cup of water going to be cool enough? Because we only have 1 piece of ice in it. Now that's something, I will admit, very minor. But there is that familiarity. Maybe you do go to your favorite restaurant, and the waitress, waiter, server, whoever it is that is your normal person that takes care of you, is not there that day. Now all of a sudden, you have a little bit of trepidation. Are these new people going to know that I like my water lukewarm and not frigid cold? Now, yes, I can tell them, but the other person was just familiar, and there was a comfort in just knowing that when my glass of ice was set on my table, it was going to be the way I liked it. It was just comforting to know that when the person came over to my table, they might tell me, "We're out of that side dish that you always order. Is there something else you would like today?" Again, maybe these are small things. Maybe these are things that shouldn't matter as much, but they take us out of our comfort zone. They take us out of our familiarity. Same way we watch YouTube channels. If we're watching someone who is always doing cruise reviews, and for some reason they decided this week they're going to go hiking and tell us about camping gear, there's just something that's odd about that. That's not their place. That's not their job. That's not what they're supposed to be doing on YouTube. Now, Jim knows with him, goodness knows you can't get familiar with anything. Jim does. Might be storms this morning. Might be some video of people walking around the neighborhood this afternoon. And later on, it might be Jim just stared into the camera talking aimlessly. Jim doesn't really have a niche, as you guys have noticed. He just sort of talks randomly, does what he feels like he can do. I think familiarity not only brings comfort by us knowing what we're going to get, it eases some anxiety that we all have. Maybe there's a different weather person on tonight. That's not the guy I always listen to. How do I know this guy knows what he's talking about? How do I know whether this guy is going to tell me that I shouldn't wear a jacket tomorrow? Does he really know I should? These are minor anxieties, but sometimes there's greater anxieties caused. Maybe it's a different person driving the bus that picks us up and takes us to our job. Maybe it's a different person that's taking us into the ambulance service. Maybe it's a different nurse that we've never seen before at the doctor's office. And boy, when Jim's light goes off, it goes off, doesn't it? He never had realized how much of a warming effect this had with no light on. That is incredible. Anyway, so maybe that is something that's familiar. Jim would become familiar with that sort of warmer light that it never registered on him how bright white this was right now. That brings up another point. Jim's brain thinks it prefers the other stimuli. This bright white, while it's maybe what is appropriate, may it be what is correct, for some reason, Jim just finds it more aesthetically pleasing to him to be this color, be this warm, to be this temperature of light. Who knows why? But anyway, Jim's sort of curious as to what are some familiarities you have in your life. What are some things that when they change, it throws your whole day for a spin? You wake up at a different time. Now, if you wake up a half hour late, maybe that causes you to be rushed for the day. I can understand that. But what if you wake up a half hour early and just everything's off? I'm supposed to brush my teeth, supposed to get in the shower, and now I've got 15 minutes that I'm standing around waiting to go get in the car to go to work. And just everything is off. What if you have plans for the day and you open the front door and you look out and it's pouring down rain? That is not how my Saturday was supposed to go. That was not how that odd weatherman that I'd never seen before told me Saturday was going to go. It's funny how our brains work. It's funny to Jim, at least. It's funny to Jim how his mind works. Because yes, I need either 3 or 5 cubes of ice in my drink. The TV either needs to be on 20 or 22, not on volume 21. I don't know why I'm like this, but I am comfortable with the way I am. I like the way I am. Now, other people might be uncomfortable with the way I am, but at 57 years old, you would think they would have become familiar with the way Jim is. I do know that my sister, when I had my car accident and had a compound fracture of my ankle, I was cutting up with the nurses, joking with the nurses, to the point that some of them were wondering if I understood how serious this break of my leg was, you know, and if I understood as a diabetic how hard it was going to be for it to cure properly. I said cure, and I should have said heal properly. So my sister did finally have to tell them that's just him. She said he uses humor to deflect. Humor is his coping mechanism. And it is. And it gets me in trouble sometimes because people do wonder if I understand how serious the situation is. So, one of the things I do when I'm not comfortable, when I am not familiar with the surroundings, is I go a little manic, start making jokes. Then people stare at me even worse, which makes me more uncomfortable, which makes me even more familiar with my surroundings. Because at heart, Jim was an introvert. And even though there are times here he can become extroverted, usually if he starts telling jokes and becomes extroverted, that means he's uncomfortable. It means he's trying to cope with it. And his coping mechanism is humor. So that night, one of the ways Jim tried to cope with the humor, they told him, of course, he couldn't have any food or drink until after the surgery. So the wreck was late at night. So we had to wait one for the orthopedic surgeon to get in. And, he had to get scrubbed up, look at the x rays, and get up to speed. So it was probably about 5 hours Jim was sitting there. And he had had no food or no drink. And I told one of the younger nurses that was there that I would give her $1,000 cash money if she would take a wash rag, get it wet in the sink, and come and just wring it out on my mouth. She stared at me like I was completely nuts and wondered how much pain medication they had given me. And my sister said, "Don't worry, that's just the way he is." So it is nice to know that my family, well, my sister at least, is comfortable and familiar with just the way I am. And so comfortable to the point that even though others might view what I'm doing and saying is crazy, my sister is comfortable enough with it to say that's just him. Jim wonders what things you're familiar with, what things you're comfortable with. What is something that can happen in your day that just makes everything wrong and you feel like crawling back in bed because this day is not going to be a good day? Maybe I'm out of coffee. Maybe you're out of cereal. Maybe you've done poured your bowl of cereal and now you're out of milk. And like I said, you might as well get back in bed. The first 5 minutes of your day have gone uncomfortably, unfamiliar to the way you usually start your morning. So you know the rest of the day is just going to be shot. How do you deal with it when things make you anxious and uncomfortable? How do you deal with it when you're in an unfamiliar place? Maybe it's a different airport. Maybe it's a different office space. Maybe they've transferred you to a new job. Jim's curious what your coping mechanisms are. Do you turn to humor? Do you become sullen?